Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our lightning practitioner talks. I'm super excited to see so many folks sticking around, right? It has been a fantastic conference so far, and I don't know about you, but my head is packed. And I'm hoping that we can squeeze in a few more facts in the next hour. As you can see, we have a ton of people up here, and they're all really important and all have super exciting things to tell you. So I will get right to the point and we will get started. I'm Elizabeth Crawford, Senior Editor for Food Navigator USA and the moderator for this event. And we are going to work our way through quick 5-minute presentations, but hopefully there'll be a few minutes at the end for some questions. So if you do have questions, hopefully you know how to use Slido. Hopefully there's a code. But if not, on either of those, also feel free to raise your hand and I will point you out. And we'll go from there. We'll go high tech, low tech. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. Our first speaker is Samantha Derrick, founder of Plant Futures Initiative, which is an academic course and social venture that equips students to work in the plant-centric food sector. Samantha, thank you so much.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay? Awesome. All right, so I'll kick it off. At Plant Futures, our focus is equipping the next generation with multidisciplinary education and experiential learning opportunities to prepare the next generation for jobs in the plant-based food and agriculture sector. Reducing the consumption of animals and transforming the food system is, of course, an incredibly complex issue that needs to be approached from a systemic lens, and we need the talents and skill sets of the next generation from all academic disciplines and backgrounds working together to solve these problems. Hi. All right. So what we've done is we've designed an innovative curriculum offered at several universities across the U.S. and starting to expand globally, where we teach students about the entire food system. We cover everything from farming and agriculture to food access, policy, innovation, CPG, and everything in between. And our focus is on universities because college is a very unique time for students when they're living independently from their parents' home for the first time. They're starting to make their own food purchasing decisions, they're starting to become more conscious consumers, and they're also starting to think about their careers and the trajectory of their lives. So that's when we come in. And we also know from research that 80% of Gen Z students are seeking values-aligned careers. They're fed up with the food system, they're fed up with the political system, they want to do something about it, and we're missing out on a huge opportunity if we're not connecting students to these jobs and to our movement. So we're targeting academia because of a personal experience that I had. I went to UC Berkeley to get my master's of public health. I was frustrated and fed up that schools weren't talking about animal agriculture or plant-based food systems. So I took it on as a personal project and challenge, developed a curriculum, mobilized other students at Berkeley, and we got the university to approve the first curriculum at the university that helps support students from all academic backgrounds to work in the plant-based food sector. So since then, we started an educational nonprofit, the Plant Futures Initiative, to scale the program and make these resources accessible to students across the globe. And the accreditation for the course that we got at UC Berkeley and the partnership we have with the universities has really allowed our nonprofit to scale very quickly to other academic institutions. And through that, we've been training everything from scientists, public health experts, nutritionists, engineers, entrepreneurs, data science students, and really have a multidisciplinary approach. And we're making it accessible to students at all stages of their education, from undergraduate all the way to PhD students. And we're focused on what we call silo busting, because students, as you know, are often very much siloed in their academic programs at universities, and we're one of the first food systems course at UC Berkeley that gets students out of their silos working together on multidisciplinary teams. And then we're also developing experiential learning experiences. So as you can see on this list, we've worked with many companies and organizations from the plant-based food sectors where students get to work directly with mentors, VPs, founders of companies on real challenges and innovation projects that these companies have. And we have a strong focus on connecting students to mentors and professionals from the industry, because your network is the single most important factor to finding a job in the space and in this movement. And next, we are creating an inclusive community through our student chapter network. We're activating the plant-based food community on campuses across the US. We have 30 campuses in our college network, and we're starting to expand globally in Mexico, Europe, and Asia, where students are becoming advocates for institutional change on their campuses and change makers. We message ourselves as a plant-centric organization, and we've actually been able to reach many, many students, thousands of students at this point, and over 80% of our students in the network do not identify as vegan or vegetarian, but they acknowledge that we need to shift to plant-centric diets for the survival of our planet and humanity. And this is very exciting to us. We don't want to just reach vegan students. We want to reach larger populations of students. We're reaching schools in the South, in the Midwest, and more conservative areas of the country, and have been able to reach students who wouldn't traditionally be joining an animal rights or a vegan organization. And it's also important to remember that universities will respond to students much more than an outside entity coming in and telling them what to do with their curriculum or with their dining halls. So we don't come in as an outside organization. We mobilize the students. We give them the tools and the resources to be the leaders and advocates on their campuses. Our China campus, for example, has advocated for new plant-based food options on their dining menus. At Harvard, they implemented a new Plant Futures curriculum in their government department because the students advocated for it. And finally, we're changing culture and perception of plant-based eating. We're making plant-based eating fun, accessible, cool. Students are hosting plant-based food tailgates during football games, potlucks, having plant-based food parties, and making it inclusive to a wide range of students. And we're excited to say that most of the students in our program identify as female and BIPOC, and we're diversifying the next generation of leaders. So I'll wrap up by... Oops, no, go back to the last slide. I'll wrap up by saying that more than 95% of the students who participate in our program report that they shift to more plant-centric diets by the time they finish our program, and more than half of them end up working in food systems. And every time we prepare or connect a student to a career in the plant-based food sector, we're saving the lives of animals and getting closer to the end of factory farming. We must continue working together as a movement to prepare the next generation of food systems leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. I like that you're not just equipping them, but that you're empowering them. Students are so often overlooked, so it's great to see the work you're doing. Thank you for sharing that. Our next speaker is Mihir, oh my gosh, you guys, Mihir Kona. I practiced with you, with Cactus Holdings Corp. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I want to also thank Brian for inviting me here. We're going to actually kick off with a very short video, and that's going to be me less talking, and hopefully you guys not being put to sleep by my talking. So if we can kick that off. Thank you.
You do it because you're passionate. You do it because you care. You care about where we're going as a society. But rising food costs, hiring and retaining good talent, while attracting paying guests, is making it impossible to run a restaurant nowadays. And that's just for one location. Now imagine scaling. Like the plant, Cactus benefits everything in its ecosystem. It creates opportunities where there's only desert. Plant-based food deserts. Cactus Beyond Kitchens offers crave-worthy, plant-based restaurants like yours a way to reach customers in untapped markets without the headaches of launching and operating another location. 47% of the US population is flexitarian, meaning they are increasingly eating plant-based without completely eliminating animal products. This booming market is projected to be $264 billion by 2030. Are you prepared to capitalize on this opportunity? So here's how Cactus works. Crave-worthy, plant-based restaurants like yours license their menu and recipes to us. And then we go beyond kitchens to launch outposts in emerging markets. Cactus promotes, makes, and delivers your branded food to hungry customers. Yes, you heard that correctly. We take on all the headaches and risks of opening another outpost for your restaurant so you can focus on doing what you do best, creating crave-worthy, plant-based foods. Want to learn more? Visit our website today.
Thank you. So that's just a quick overview of what we're doing. So just a couple of quick points. So our mission at Cactus Holding Corporation, and we're going to have a nice announcement coming out in January in terms of our launch. So we're here to really build bridges that connect everyone with what we're calling crave-worthy plant-based foods, right? Substance, it's got to taste good. It's got to feel good. And purpose, right? There's a variety of reasons why many individuals may be plant-based, right? Philosophically, I grew up in a Jain household. If any of you guys are familiar with Jainism, the concept of ahimsa or nonviolence towards any sentient beings. And so that really, was a driving factor behind this. And I'll put in a plug for Brian here. The theme is resilience, for the full, the summit, and cactus, right? Symbolically, it's a hell of a resilient plant. It thrives in the harshest of environments, and those are also the characteristics and attributes of the people that work in the food and beverage industry, right? So the problems we're looking to solve on the demand side. So consumers, again, our focus is not just vegans and vegetarians. It's everybody. And we want to invite them in by just saying, hey, look, here's some really awesome, stellar, delicious, mouth-watering, crave-worthy food. Come on in. And so that's really from the demand side. Supply side, the challenge that restaurateurs and chefs face, that's our focus on the other side of this platform, two-sided marketplace, Amazon, if you guys are familiar. So supply side, we provide a platform to the restaurateurs and chefs to help them accelerate launching and scaling of their plant-based restaurant brands, right? And that's what's going to really hit the mark, at least one end of the spectrum. From a market point of view, the NRA, not that NRA, National Restaurant Association, is projecting restaurant sales at 1.3 trillion by 2030. And just last year, the sales for U.S. restaurant sales was around 898 billion, right? And so, if we look at the plant-based or the flexitarian, reducetarian market, it's quite significant. So we really need to scale plant-based restaurant brands. And so I'll close off by saying, there's been a lot of discussion around messaging, for plant-based community, and how do we, kind of look at that. So my background is actually cybersecurity. And from an information risk point of view, I've dealt with legacy board members and, the mindset. There's a really cool framework that I've found. It's really impactful. It's by this individual called Peter Sandman. Risk equals hazard plus outrage. What does that mean? So just quickly, we all understand what the risks are for plant-based, for non-plant-based foods. We may understand what the hazards are, right? But is there enough outrage to, within the community or the broader world to be able to do something about it? So how do we throttle communication for our respective stakeholders, consumers, restaurants, investors, and public policy advocates? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have Rune Christopher, the Secretary General of the Vegetarian Society of Denmark and the Deputy Chair and International Vegetarian Union. One clicker coming your way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the invitation. Like this, it should be better. All right. So I'll try to get briefly into what is it that has happened in Denmark. Some of you might have heard about it. This is a small Scandinavian country. So like 3 minutes about what happened, 2 minutes about how did it happen. First of all, whoops, I have to touch the green one, I think. Here we go, yes. So part of the deal that the Danish government and parliament struck was to give some incentives for farmers. So that will include incentives directly for the farmers to incentivize cultivation of plant crops for human consumption. They have excluded some major feed crops, but they're still technically allowed to give it to the animals. So you really need to be sure that there is actually a demand, whether it's domestic sales or exports, to make this a success. But the purpose is to incentivize foods for human consumption. Then Denmark established this fund for plant-based foods to support the entire plant-based ecosystem in Denmark with 100 million euros over 8 years. They're board members from farmers, businesses, researchers, consumers. I myself also a board member of it, since we got the right to appoint a board member as well. You can find more about it at the website of the fund. The fund will support all sorts of projects from farm to table, so that will include projects that increase consumption in professional kitchens, private consumption. It can be nudging experiments in supermarkets, it can be retailer collaborations, it can be export activities. It also does support R&D, product development, and including also seed trials for farmers, and finally strengthening their collaboration throughout the value chain. So it's a whole thing. It's really broad, but we also think it's really nice to have a government showing that you actually want to emphasize the full plant-based food system to really get a transition. Then, very recently, Denmark launched an action plan for plant-based foods. It's just 2 weeks ago. It starts with the quote, "Plant-based foods are the future." Furthermore, that it's a necessary global transition of agriculture to a more plant-based food base. And it also stresses that Denmark would like to inspire the rest of the world. It's a kind of big words. It is accompanied by some new action and also a collection of previous actions. So it's like a document of 35 pages. They are going to come with an English version of this very soon. I highly recommend to look into that and give it to your local state or national governments as soon as it gets out there in English. Because it's pretty unique, right? A government making a plan for this in 35 pages. It does include new initiatives on supporting the development of the chef's education, possibly developing a specialty as a vegetarian chef for those young students who would like to do that. Generally, a more focus on post-education for kitchen professionals and nutrition professionals, integrating the relevant knowledge about plant-based foods in the education system, including nutrition assistance, dairy education, farmer schools, and they're also working on recommendations for plant-based diets in public institutions based on Denmark's already existing quite plant-forward dietary guidelines that are almost copy-paste from the Eat Lancet Commission's recommendations. They will also work on the food sector, how to brand this through the Danish embassies. That's new because they used only to brand really pork and dairy. So it's new that they will start also branding plant-based products. They also want to promote this internationally at the EU level, thereby giving it a larger scale. And of course, focus on innovation-friendly regulation, all the things about prohibiting labeling, etc. Denmark has a very liberal stance on that, trying to keep it open. And the farmers, like generally, Denmark is a country they're trying to support a liberal approach to developing new products and naming them in a liberal way too. Finally, they want broader strategic collaboration across stakeholders. This is a very brief summary of 35 pages, but here you go. So how did this happen? I have made this kind of Y and X axis basically showing this, of course, a very raw sketch, and some people might feel, ho, this organization doesn't belong there. This is just to try to show an idea that you can have idealism up there that can turn into fundamentalism. You can also have so-called realism that can become strong conservatism. On the other side of the spectrum here, you have idealism such as organic, unprocessed, healthier, wholesome, whole foods, home-cooked meals, or business, high-tech, conventional, ultra-processed foods. What we tried to do as an organization was to put ourselves squarely in the middle of all this and say, we need to bring everyone together. We don't want organic farmers and health food idealists and then high-tech industry to be fighting each other, with either side sometimes tending to a bit of arrogance, because we need both solutions and we need to collaborate on this. And we did this we established a network for plant proteins, which has 200 professionals throughout the value chain. This did inspire other actors. We made a collaboration with the organic farmers of Denmark, Organic Denmark, because there is a joint interest between the two. Finally, all of this previous stuff inspired the largest conventional farmers association in Denmark. So those are the people who also include the pork producers, the dairy producers. They're a very powerful lobbyist organization in Denmark. They represent pork and dairy, etc. But they made this a strategy for plant-based foods together with us, the Vegetarian Society of Denmark. So if this can happen in such a country like Denmark, which is famous for intensive livestock, I think it can happen anywhere in the world. And that leads me to my conclusion. It's really important to consider to do sequencing. There was a researcher that taught me that word recently. We should be careful of pushing the big change too fast. You need it step by step by step, and then you get feedback mechanisms. That means then you can get bigger and bigger chunks of the pie, so to say, and further strengthen the whole development. And you need collaboration with the farmers. That's so important to get the farmers on board and the industry. And really, again, we have to unite the whole foods organic segment and the tech business segment. We need both. And I do think NGOs could play a bridge builder role in all of this. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. I, for one, am looking forward to the English version, and based on how many people are taking photos of the slides, I bet you have some other readers out in the audience. Next up, we have Nora Stewart, the manager of the California Climate Friendly School Food Program at Friends of the Earth. Nora, welcome.
All right, I will also stand. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today in this last session. I'm Nora. I am with Friends of the Earth, and I work as the manager for the Climate Friendly School Food Program in California. Let's see if this works. Oh, there we go. And so our program is really focused on rapidly transitioning away from factory farming and towards a healthy, just, and regenerative food system. And so at a federal level, our broader program focuses on changing public procurement practices, where the government purchases $9 billion in food annually. But I really focus more within California with K through 12 school districts on really shifting towards more plant-based and organic offerings. In just 5 years, we've been able to expand to about 85 school districts, including 22 of the top 35 largest school districts in California, in generating plant-based menu shifts. So this is rapidly growing and really expanding, and so I'm really excited to be here today. I'm going to just quickly talk through 5 approaches to our work that really helps to make my job and to rapidly scale plant-based to where it is today. So the first is really menu development and recipe support. And so we really provide school districts with technical assistance around plant-based options and really connecting them to non-GMO plant-based vendors that use whole, minimally processed ingredients and really bridge that gap and bridge that connection. We also provide support to vendors around CN labeling or child nutrition labeling to get it easier to go into schools. And then we also provide recipes, right? What are the recipes that are plant-based that are popular and work and tried and true with districts? And so getting school districts connected with that. The second piece is really on peer-to-peer learning opportunities. And I think this strategy has been incredibly successful in my work, is getting directors on the phone with one another on a monthly Zoom call to really share best practices, lessons learned, challenges around how to shift to more climate-friendly and plant-based offerings. They are really the experts. They know what works best. And so really giving them the opportunity to share with one another. The third strategy is really on plant-based microgrant program. This is something that we launched about 2 years ago with partnership with Greenbaum and Veg Fund, and it's been incredibly successful. Truthfully, we did not think it was going to be so successful. We offered school districts small amounts of money to implement plant-based in their community, and we asked them to give us projects that they propose, and we got way more applicants than we ever thought possible from school districts who wanted to purchase small equipment or do a taste testing or buy a new product just to try it out. So we gave about $1,000 to $3,000 to school districts on small microgrants. And so it really worked in California, and we would love to do it in other states. So if anyone's interested in that model, please come talk to me afterwards. The fourth is marketing support. So I came with some goodies. Let's see here. So we have posters and signages. We do social media things to make it really helpful for school districts to implement. We know it's not just putting plant-based products on the menu. The students have to eat it. So how do we get students to understand the benefits? And that leads me to my fifth and final strategy, which is really on student engagement. We really want to uplift student voices on this. They're ultimately the customer. This affects them every day. They have to eat school food. And so how do we get their input and their buy-in? So getting them face-to-face with their directors to really advocate for more plant-based options, and also bring them in on taste testing and other marketing strategies as well, so that they can help message to school districts. And we have, again, you know, these are all different culturally appropriate, various different offerings that are on the menu as a result of our work. You can see that, you know, there's been just tremendous success with adding more offerings and just being more inclusive. And I would say that now we're impacting about 2 million students collectively with our work, which we're really excited about. And I just want to share that this ultimately is really building a network of advocates. And we're really doing that grassroots work that then feeds up to the federal and state level to really get students or staff or parents or nutrition service directors directly in front of decision makers and USDA to help change the policy work, which is a whole other PowerPoint. But if anyone is interested about how Friends of the Earth is working on our policy work to shift policy around school food, please come talk to me afterwards. And I will end on this note. Please follow us. You can sign up for our newsletter. And I also have this really awesome report. I have so many copies, and I don't want to take it home. So you are more than welcome to come and grab one afterwards about these trends in plant-based. Anyways, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nora. Next up, we have Harry Rhodes, the Executive Director of the Food Animal Concerns Trust. Thank you, Harry.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I'm Harry Rhodes, Executive Director of Food Animal Concerns Trust, or FACT. We have a vision that all food-producing animals will be raised in a humane and healthy manner. And we do that by supporting humane farmers throughout the country, by working to make sure that the food that comes from these animals, from these farmers, is safe and healthy to eat, and by providing consumers with important information about the food that they're eating and what's available. Michael Pollan once said, "Eat food, mostly plants, not too much." For me, that simple motto shows how is something that's great for farmers, for eaters, for animals, and for the planet. FACT was founded in 1982 to raise awareness about the horrible conditions that animals raised for food face every day on factory farms. Our vision that all animals will be raised humanely in a healthy manner and that everyone will have access to healthy food, we need first to stop raising animals on factory farms. This huge step forward will inevitably lead to less but healthier meat produced and consumed. Last year, FACT published its climate change position paper. In it, we propose that raising animals for food is not bad in and of itself, as many people claim. Raising animals regeneratively in a humane manner can help the planet and can mitigate climate change. I have a few examples of farms that are doing the work that I've just talked about. Chocolog Farm in Massachusetts shared their story with us recently. The farm uses a myriad of regenerative conservation practices, including highly intensive rotational mob grazing with daily moves of their cattle from one pasture to the next. Their commitment to regenerative, climate-smart practices has helped them build resiliency and optimize their operation. Greg Gunthorpe, a fourth-generation farmer in Indiana, runs the Gunthorpe Family Farms. He raises pigs, turkeys, and sheep. I had the opportunity to visit him recently. They're all raised outdoors in a natural setting, humanely, and treated with respect. 20 years ago, Greg found that there was no humane processing facility near him, so he decided to start his own. Greg's operation is an amazing example of what could be and how we could work to transform the food system. He's committed to ending factory farming, and he recently told me, it's time to turn up the heat. There's a lot of successes we can look at, but collectively we're losing the war to to industrial ag. The third example I want to share is from the prairie band Potawatomi. Today they're in Kansas, but originally they were on Lake Michigan near Chicago before their land was stolen from them, as so many indigenous tribes have faced over the years. They are now raising 270 bison, and they have a goal to increase it to 500. Food sovereignty is the key to what they're working on, and the food from the bison goes to feed families and the elderly. This tribe has amazing respect for the animals they're raising, and they refer to the animals as their ancestors. We, in fact, believe that there is a humane alternative to factory farming. You've seen a small example of that today. We have worked to build up a network of 12,000 farmers throughout the country, all of whom are interested in ending factory farming and creating an alternative, regenerative animals ag system. Together, we can create a food system that focuses on healthy, humanely raised food that is good for the entire ecosystem. As Greg said, it's time to turn up the heat and stop the cruelty carried out daily on factory farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Next up, we have Ignacio Uribe, the President and CEO of Veg Foundation, who, sorry, too many chefs in the kitchen.
Hi everyone, thank you. I'm Ignacia from Veg Foundation, formerly known as Vegetarianos Hoy. We are an international organization working in Latin America to promote plant-based diets and the reduce of suffering of farm animals. We work in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico. And today I'm going to share with you what we do for diet change, but also some ideas that we have. We haven't implemented them, but I think it's good to share them also. So first of all, we believe as an organization that there are some good news and bad news. The good news is that probably in the future we will be able to eat meat from different ways without animal being hurt. But also the bad news is that trillions of animals are being slaughtered every year. So our main question is, how can we make a difference during the years in between we get to this future? And we work mainly in corporate change. For example, we work in the commitments of percentage of plant-based plates and products served or sold. For example, now we're working with the City Hall of Santiago in Chile to get 50 restaurants with a seal of Menu for the Planet, which means that they have a complete vegan menu for the people. And also, as we call it, Menu for the Planet, you already know that it's something that is helping the planet. We also develop new vegan products. We do that because we certify companies with the V label, for example, and then when they already certify some products, we encourage them to have more products certified, and we help them to change some ingredients so the products are vegan, and we veganize products. And one thing that we want to do, but we haven't done it yet, is to turn existing and popular product into plant-based ones. And here I put the example of the Kit Kat. You will probably know that it already exists, a vegan Kit Kat in the UK, but it's not everywhere. So, and it's very difficult to find probably outside the UK. And even in the UK, I was in London like a few weeks ago, and it's not like you go to any grocery store and it's there. So our goal is to turn like existing popular products into vegan products, and not to have the vegan version, just to have the normal, traditional vegan product that everyone knows, but in a vegan way. And we also do political change. We work with public policies to develop and promote vegan products in the reduction of animal ones by our campaign Menu for the Planet in different countries of Latin America. We also lobby special events. We started in 2019 with the COP that was going to be hosted in Chile. We got them to commit to be 30% plant-based, but then we have like a social crisis, and the COP moved like in 1 month to Madrid, and they didn't do the commitment. But still, we still participating in the alliance that is lobbying the COP every day, and this, every year. And this year, it's very good news. There are like 2 of 3 plates of the COP is going to be plant-based. And we also worked, for example, in the Pan American Games, which are being hosted in Chile right now with athletes from all over the Americas. And for the first time, they have vegan options for the athletes. So it's also a very good win. And we are working with the Chilean government. We have a commitment with them to work in plant-based foods, and we're working with them to get institutional commitments of 50% plant-based until 2025. But we know all of this is not going to lead us to the change. So it's a missing piece here, and the missing piece is the social change. So a few ideas, we're not working in all of them, but for example, is that we need worldwide vegan influencers. So if any of you have the chance to know any of these people or people that know them, I just want to bring it up that we already lost Miley Cyrus, so we really need like Taylor Swift or Harry Styles to be vegan. And also when, for example, Kim Kardashian says she's like part-time vegan, we should be all celebrating that in social media. So if you haven't done so, please go to Kim Kardashian Instagram and do it. We also need, in the rest of the world, I know there is a lot here in the US or in Europe, but we really need like local books and documentaries in the Global South. Myself, I wrote this book. It's probably the first vegan book of Latin America. It's going to be launched this week in the World Vegan Day. But we need more. We need documentaries and we need everything because we get, I don't know, like everyone has watched Conspiracy probably in Latin America, but then we cannot use those data to convince the people there. So we need like local things. And last but not least, we also need like other cultural products, like mass consumption products. So also, we're not working on this, but if you have any chance, like to know anyone that could write, for example, a vegan fan fiction of Harry Potter, I think it would be great. Also, to get, I don't know, like the main character of an anime of being vegan. I don't know, like Korean culture is very popular now, so if we get BTS to be vegan, it would be great. So just want to bring up these ideas in case you can work on them too. Yeah, and these are my contacts, so if you have any questions, we can talk. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the idea of vegan fan fiction. You guys let me know if you produce it. Next up, we have Robert Yeaman, the Executive Director of Innovate Animal Ag.
Everyone, thanks for sticking around to the last session here. So I want to talk about helping farm animals through technology, which is what we focus on. But to start out, I want to start with something that maybe people here will kind of know, maybe will be a surprise to some, but if you look at polling around animal welfare, it consistently is one of the most uncontroversial and most supported issues in our society. Yet, as we all know, a vast majority of animals live in conditions of poor welfare. And when you talk about particular practices that are commonplace on farms, a majority of people find them unacceptable or are uncomfortable with them. So I like thinking about this as a kind of paradox. Like, how can the way things are be so different from the kind of like cultural beliefs we have as a society? And I think if we looked at the climate space, we can have some solutions. So to use the language of economists, both climate change and animal suffering are unpriced externalities, which means that they are costs associated with the products that are not directly paid by the consumer or the producer. And just as nobody inherently wants climate change to happen, nobody inherently wants animals to suffer on farms, yet both happen. In the climate space, technology is often seen as one of our most powerful, most practical solutions to the biggest challenges. You think about things like solar panels, electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, the list goes on. Yet, when it comes to animal welfare, technology is often under-discussed or under-resourced. And when we think about the reason why technology is powerful in the climate space, it's because it's practical, which means that it's something that the companies in the space can be on board with. It's popular, which means that it's consumers and the general public can be on board with them. And most importantly, they're scalable. There's things that can be scaled across our entire system. So Innovate Animal Ag's mission is basically to bring that sort of thinking that has been successful in the climate space to the animal welfare space. So we're a nonprofit think tank that conducts research on the cutting edge of agricultural technology to identify technologies that can help animals while also being producer-friendly. We promote technology as a solution to animal welfare issues, and we also directly support some of the most promising technologies, which I will talk about next. So I think that one of the best examples of the type of technologies that I'm talking about is this new technology in the egg industry called in ovo sexing. So as many might be aware, part of the industrialization of the poultry industry has been that the breeds of birds that we use for meat and for eggs are different, which means that the male layers in the egg industry serve no economic purpose. So what happens now is that 6 billion chicks are manually sorted by humans and then killed on the first day of life. The technological solution to this challenge is technology that can determine which eggs will hatch males so that they can be removed from the supply and only females are hatched. So Innovate Animal Ag has been conducting original research on the kind of rollout of this technology in Europe, and many people don't know, but the technology is actually quite widespread there now, with around 10 to 20% of the entire European layer population already using this technology. The price impact has been around 12 to 36 cents per dozen, and you can see a map here around the world. In polling that we've done around the US business case for eggs made with the technology, we've seen substantial interest and willingness to pay, self-reported. The median willingness to pay is 36 cents or higher. And if you remember, the most expensive the eggs are in Europe is 36 cents. So we are helping businesses understand that if they wanted to tomorrow, they could implement this technology and consumers would be willing to pay this price premium. Long term, this price of the technology will come down over time, so it can be a much more widespread technology. That's all I have. Ways to get involved if you are someone who consumes eggs. Technology is not yet available in the US, but it will be, I believe, very soon. So keep an eye out. And we have a newsletter there, and that's my email. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next up, we have Manny, who's the CEO and co-founder of Climate Refarm. Welcome.
Okay. I have no slides, so I won't be needing this. And actually, I'm going to keep my presentation short so that we can leave a couple minutes for questions. So feel free to think of questions along the way, and I'll leave it to you to cut folks off when we're out of time. So I am Manny Rutinel. I am the CEO of Climate Refarm. I won't get into the details as to all the horrors of factory farming. I think each of us know very well. But what we're trying to do is address the climate component of animal agriculture. So many of y'all have heard a lot of the stats associated with animal agriculture. Maybe you've heard 15%, 20%, 25%. I think the truth is, before we get into what Climate Refarm does, just to get a lay of the land, is that those statistics are often huge underestimates of the true climate impact associated with animal agriculture. And the reason for that is because when you look at the statistics, what they're accounting for is direct emissions. So maybe methane coming out of a manure lagoon or the belching of cows. But it's not taking into account what's called the carbon opportunity cost associated with animal agriculture. So just real quick, what that means is, as many of you know, maybe about 50% of the land in the United States goes to grazing or feed crops for cattle. So we're taking up huge amounts of land just for livestock. What that means is that land can't grow forests, that could otherwise be sequestering carbon at immense rates. And so what you have is, in a world in which we transition towards a more plant-based system, you have about, if you do it across the world, about 800 gigatons of carbon getting sequestered all over the world through forests, wetlands, etc. And that's about 2/3 of all the carbon emissions that we've put out over the last century. A huge amount. This is the leading source of climate problems across the world, and it's an outrage that folks aren't focused on it. So what we at Climate Reform are trying to do is we're trying to tap into the carbon offset market. How many of y'all have heard of what a carbon credit is before? Okay, so most of y'all in the room. So for those of y'all who don't know what a carbon credit is, basically sometimes you see a package and it says, we at X company, we're carbon neutral. What that company does is they reduce their emissions as much as they can, but then to make up for the emissions that they can't eliminate or won't eliminate, they fund projects somewhere else in the world that sequester carbon. Usually it's maybe planting forests or something along the lines of that. Often these carbon credits are unreliable, the carbon accounting is shaky, they're not great. But what we're trying to do at Climate Reform is work with food providers like school cafeteria systems, hospital cafeteria systems, and get them to shift from carbon-intensive meat products towards more sustainable plant-based options. And we generate carbon credits from that shift. So we take into account the emission reductions associated with that shift, we generate carbon credits, and then we sell it to those companies that are interested in carbon commitments of some kind. So the idea being, what if we could fund the animal transition movement or the just transition movement away from animals by having the largest corporations on the planet fund that transition? That's what we're trying to do. I'll open it up for questions. Comments, concerns, anything along those lines. We'd love to hear it.
Keith, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes. So to be clear, this means when you turn it into a forest, you have to leave it in the forest. You can't just next year just say, well, we need this for timber or something.
Yeah, so what we
Can
do
you
is we
repeat
don't
the
work.
question for everyone?
Yeah, so I think Keith is talking about forest-related carbon credits. What we're doing is we're not working in the forest carbon credit space. We're working in the food system directly on the food procurement side. So we work with a school. Let's say they have 1 year worth of food procurement records. We say, okay, based on your food procurement over the last year, your emissions are at this level. We're going to do a Meatless Monday program, and we're going to bring you down to this level. The difference in emissions from this to this, we calculate those emission reductions, generate carbon credits, sell those carbon credits to Uber, let's say, take that money and give it to the school.
So this is credits for anything, parts or whatever.
This is credits for the emission reductions associated with food procurement. Yeah. Yeah.
Have we already implemented it?
Yeah, we've
Case studies of
Yeah. Yes, we've got a few pilot projects underway already in Asia, which we're really excited about. They're relatively small schools, some Meatless Monday programs in a few schools already, and we've got corporate credit purchasers already on hand. We've got one large one. And our platform for individuals to calculate their emissions and to be able to buy our carbon credits to offset their emissions, that's launching very soon at climatereform.com. Yes?
All right, one more.
Yeah, so the school or hospital gets to decide how long they want to work with us. And so potentially they could work with us for up to 5 years and generate carbon credits each year. So for that year, they produced emissions at this level, and then the next year they do Meatless Monday, the next year they might do plant-based defaults, and we'll generate carbon credits each year based on that initial baseline, and then sell it to corporations, and then give them the money each year. Thanks all so much.
Thank you so much, Manny. And if you do have questions, hopefully we'll have a few more minutes at the end, or maybe you can catch Manny during the break. Next up, I would like to introduce Lisa Lubin, the Executive Director for Crate Free USA. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Lubin, the Executive Director of Crate Free USA. Thank you for having me. How is everybody doing last session? So Crate Free USA is a nonprofit started about 10 years ago outside of Chicago. We are very much in line with Reducetarian. We are pragmatic. We don't care what you are. We want to be inclusive, not exclusive, so we welcome plant eaters, omnivores. We want to help animals today. We don't want to wait until the world goes vegan because we want to reach as many people. And of course, as you all know, it's a huge problem. So how many know what a gestation crate is? So our focus is right now on pigs, and they live in, majority on factory farms live in gestation crates so small that they cannot even turn around. This is the reality, and while we're here in a bubble in this conference, most consumers don't know this, or they think it's a minority, but it's a vast majority that live like this. And pigs, as you might know, have the same mentality as dogs, and people can't imagine keeping their dog for life in a crate like this, but this is what happens to all these nameless pigs. So how do we affect change? Number one, we work on retail campaigns. One of our first campaigns was targeting Trader Joe's. Everyone loves Trader Joe's, great cute signs, local vibe, but they still sourced their pork from producers that kept them in crates. This was a successful campaign. We met with them in California, and they've since phased out crates in their fresh pork supply chain. So if you go to your local Trader Joe's, you should see these crate-free signs and labels on their packages. Our next two current campaigns are larger, ongoing campaigns. We've worked with other partner organizations, Humane Society, World Animal Protection, Humane League, Mercy for Animals, on some of these campaigns. Costco had a animal welfare commitment, but they had a loophole of saying that pigs could still stay in crates for about 5 to 6 weeks in their pregnancy. So we launched this campaign a few years ago for them to really just say they're going crate free. We introduced them to Clemens Pork. Clemens is, I think, the 4th largest pork producer in the US, and they are now starting to source their pork from Clemens, who only uses group housing. So they will be less than 9 days in a crate. So these little steps make a difference. Our longest running campaign is with Aldi. Who likes Aldi? Aldi has a cult following, kind of like Trader Joe's. People love Aldi. They are known as, oh, they carry these great vegan products. While that is good, they don't do both things. Their animal welfare policies are very bad. So we kind of call that vegan washing. Like, look at what we're doing with all these cool vegan products, but at the same time, they had very little animal welfare policy, including all their pigs are sourced from the large pig producers that keep their pigs in crates. This is a 4-year campaign. We're ongoing. This is the one company that has ignored everything. They have not come to the table. Just recently, Animal Equality started a campaign in Germany, which is where Aldi was formed, although the US Aldi is completely separate. They're also based outside of Chicago, so we've been to their offices there. But now they're sort of saying to German Aldi, look at your sibling there in the US, how they're not committing to anything, so we're hopeful that maybe that'll make a change. We have a small army called Pig Protectors. You can join if you go to our website. This is where we send actions for some of our campaigns to spread the word, to call your legislators, to call the companies, and ask for change. We also do humane education. We go into schools. We want to bridge the gap and this disconnect that students have. We send them home with materials for their parents so they can kind of understand where their food comes from, because this gap has gotten larger and larger where people don't even relate to that. We help promote some public policy, but we found more effective with the retail campaigns, especially in a big ag state like Illinois where we're based. It's a big uphill climb, but we've been part of these other coalitions helping pass these bans, and we work with local farmers. We have a mobile app directing people so they don't shop for meat if they're going to eat meat at their supermarket, but they can go find it at a local, more humane farmer. And we highlight these farmers on our website, and we just basically ask people do 3 R's. Remove meat from your diet, If you can't do that, reduce your meat for consumption and reject factory farm meat. And you can follow more on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Last but not least, we have Taylor Quinn, founder and CEO of Tailored Food. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Hi. Firstly, thank you for staying. Last speaker, last session, Sunday afternoon. Hard to follow the 9 people before me who are incredibly impressive, and I want to talk to many of you after. So I'm going to try to keep it brief, follow Manny's inspiration to try to save some time for questions. But I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different of what does all this look like in more complex economies, in Somalia, in Haiti, in Brazil. And so I have a little organization, the formatting's weird, apologies for that, called Tailored Food. And so I was living in Liberia during Ebola back in 2015. And Dr. Jude, this pediatrician, explained to me that moms were spending, good money on food in local markets, but yet still their kids were dying of malnutrition. They were buying animal-based foods, plant-based foods, all the foods, still dying of malnutrition. He was seeing the same kids again and again, and kids were still dying of malnutrition. Because in addition to all the conversations we're having here, of course, the role of processed food is a really important one. And as farmers in developing countries are doing more cash crops, supplying products that are sold at Whole Foods and whatnot, they're being forced to buy more processed food. And so at Tailored Food, and again, sorry for the formatting, we try to build food systems based on 4 core things. Food should be nutritious, food should be affordable, food should be really, really tasty and delicious, and food should be local. And the thing, this is not, we don't talk about plant-based in any of our material because we sneak in the plant-based part. And I'll talk about that more in a second. So there's 3 core things I've learned doing this work of building plant-based food systems in countries around the world. Number 1, moms care deeply about the health of their families. Number 2, food companies make a lot of money selling food to the world's lowest income families. And number 3, and kind of our core thesis, it is not only possible, but it's actually profitable to sell plant-based, low-cost food to the world's lowest income families. And if you don't believe me, come up to me after. We can talk about the numbers. But we've been doing this work now for many years. Right now, we're actively working in 19 countries, mostly in Africa, but also in other parts of the world. So here are some of the organizations we work with. But just to tell a quick example. We're doing a big project right now with UNICEF. So UNICEF is the world's big children's charity, the UN children's charity. So UNICEF was planning to spend $16 million in Burundi in East Africa, spend $16 million in Burundi on chicken and rabbit farms. So despite kind of high level and the great work that Lasse is doing and others at the UN Foundation, the UN food systems organizations are aggressively promoting industrialized animal agriculture. So the plan, $16 million in Burundi. I showed up in Burundi on behalf of UNICEF, and we started looking at the data of why are people in Burundi malnourished, even though they've been, supported but with animals, and Don, a Well-Fed World, talks a lot about this. Yeah, Don. Around donations of animals, households are getting chickens and cows and rabbits and all these things, and yet why are people still malnourished? So when you look at the data, households, it's really expensive to grow animals at the household level. The cost of feed, the cost of medicine, the cost of actually building, houses or, cages for animals. And so we proposed to UNICEF a completely plant-based strategy to set up a network of decentralized women-run plant-based businesses in Burundi. UNICEF has approved that, so the $16 million that was supposed to be spent on chicken and rabbit farming is now going to be spent on plant-based food, which is cool. No, it's not that exciting. This is just in September, so we're still working on it. Talk to me in a year and then maybe I can get a round of applause. Anyways, and I want to just emphasize that, a big critique I hear in the movement is that, the plant-based movement, especially in contexts like Africa, is very colonial, is very white, is very top-down. Of course, I'm a white man in this space, so, conscious of that and my positioning in it all too. But when you actually look at cuisines around the world, most cuisines around the world, historically, were primarily plant-based. And the focus on eating animals each and every day or 3 times a day or 2 times a day, that's been an idea that's been brought in with colonialism and with kind of a more Western way of processed thinking. So we at Tailored Food, we look at food history, we look at food culture and see what have people been eating historically and how can we make those food products better. A couple of quick examples, fermented and flavored soy-based porridge in Liberia, banana leaf wrapped protein bars in Congo, basically a Congolese-style Cliff Bar that's been made in Congo since the 1800s. We were the first to commercialize it and the UN's been buying it for 4 years. Nutritious nut butters in Mozambique, porridges in Cameroon, and we market all of this with comedians, hip-hop stars, religious influencers, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, thanks for listening. I didn't follow Manny's good strategy of leaving time for questions, but thanks everyone, and thank you all to the other panelists and to Brian for hosting such a beautiful event.
Thank you, Taylor. I want to echo your gratitude because this event has been amazing. And I want to thank all of you for sharing very briefly a little bit about what you're doing. We don't have time as a group to do questions. So if you all are willing, maybe those who do have questions can come up or find them during the next break. And I just want to thank you all for sticking around, attending, listening, and thank you again for sharing your stories.